this morning, you letting us into your world as a military person.
I think it's just one of those interviews that you can't imagine what happens on the field.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the service you give to the nation. Thank you.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a passion.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
President of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Christopher Isiguzu. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, of course, so there's just a lot of mixed feelings and reactions.
You have a good studio, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Happy to get that compliment finally.
Well, it's okay. What is good is good.
Thank you. All right. So, well, you know, there are a lot of reactions and mixed feelings about how far journalists have gone, and this day or this period is one of the times to reflect on how far we have gone as journalists in terms of carrying out our responsibilities. So what would be your assessment of the performance of Nigerian journalists in particular?
Well, thank you again for having me. And I get this question over and over again whenever I'm discussing issues affecting journalists and journalism practice. Of course, it's always there. Being the most populous nation in Africa and can compete very strongly across the globe, this issue would always, come up. But I must tell you that before we begin to assess, the performance of journalists, somewhat we're looking at doing a comparative analysis, because that's the only way you're going to assess. You must also look at the environment where the journalists operate. So if you are going to situate it that way, maybe the journalists in the West, the journalists in the East, the journalists in Africa, what are the things that are available to all of them at these climes? You would say that Nigerian journalists are doing excellently well. They are doing very well, actually, because looking at the operational environment, looking at the plethora of challenges, looking at what is available for them, and in spite of all that, they are still holding their side, doing well. We have the trilogy functions of the media. You talk about they inform, talk about they educate, talk about they entertain. So whatever the journalist does is contained in these three. No matter what you do, it's either you are informing, or you are educating, or you are entertaining. So if we are going to assess the Nigerian journalists from this perspective, I must tell you that we are doing very well, because ordinarily we have 1,001 reasons why we should not do well, but we have not shied away from the fact that the society looks up to the journalists. Before now, we used to say the judiciary is the last hope of the common man. But it does appear, looking at the prevailing situation, circumstances, and what have you, the journalists, the media, has now become the last hope of the common man, because even the man at the top, the man at the lower rung of the ladder, whoever you are, wherever you find yourself, you are looking up to the media. What is the media saying? What are journalists writing? And that, to a very large extent, guides what the society does. And what it means is that the journalist in Nigeria is doing very well.
Okay, so I think it was just a very perfect place to land it, where you said, Nigerians are actually looking forward to the Nigerian journalists in shaping information and putting out there. But let's look at this. The day is not just to celebrate journalism alone. It's also to remind governments of their responsibility. Do you think that Nigerian journalists or journalists in Nigeria have been able to live up to that expectations? And aside from that, how free is free of press? And how free is the information flow between the government and the Nigerian journalists? Have we really been in that space?
Well, when we talk about the World Press Freedom Day, you know, there are key features of that celebration. You have just highlighted one, reminding government of its obligations, you know, when it comes to free speech, when it comes to freedom of the press. Of course, beyond that, we are also looking at the fundamental principles of press freedom. And of course, it's an opportunity to celebrate journalists that have, you know, had encounters that are not so interesting. It's also an opportunity to celebrate them, those that have lost their lives in the course of doing their jobs. Well, your question has to do with reminding government. What that means is you are referencing Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, where the responsibility of holding government to account is reposed in the media. Are we doing that? I must tell you, clearly the Nigerian journalists whom I have already assessed as doing well, yes, to a very large extent, because without the media holding the powerful to account, then the powerful is going to become a tyrant, you know. So they are so conscious of what the media says, you know. So I can tell you that any day the media decides to abandon that constitutional responsibility, then there is no government. Because holding the powerful to account, one thing you are looking at is to ensure there is accountability in government. You are looking at transparency in government. You're talking about probity. You're talking about the sum total of good governance. All of them are embedded in that constitutional responsibility. Hold those in power to account. What it means is that they are presiding over what is called common patrimony. And it behoves us as the media, the fourth estate of the realm, you know, to also hold them to account and know what they are doing, how they are deploying the common resources, how they are, you know, ensuring that there is good governance, how they are delivering democracy dividends, how they are carrying Nigerians along. Because if you don't hold them to account, then there's nothing we are doing. So I can tell you to a very large extent, it may not be 100% because there are still certain factors that tend to stop or restrict or prevent the journalists from fully carrying out that responsibility. But to a very large extent, they are doing that. You can go through the dailies, listen to the news, the radio and television stations. You see that they are asking questions, you know, and I can tell you to a large extent that we have not failed in that responsibility.
You know, quite interesting because I think you explained everything so well. I was going to ask, with the era of traditional media competing with social media in terms of relevance, you know, are journalists still very sensitive in news judgment? But I think you highlighted all that. So I'll just move on to ask, with the CS team looking more at environmental crisis in the era of climate change, global warming and all that, do you think that the theme is apt at this time?
Yes, it's very timely. This year's theme is a press for the planet, journalists in the face of environmental crisis. Of course, you would agree with me that so many things are changing, you know, in terms of our environment, you know. We have the issue of, you have also made reference to it, climate change, you know, coming up with issues around deforestation and, well, you say global warming and all that and all that. What that means, in fact, there's something that has happened this year. We have not felt the kind of heat we felt this year ever, you know. That's also a reflection of the climate change, you know, and it is the responsibility of the media to highlight these issues and equally profile working conditions or solutions, you know, to them, so that the populace is not confused, you know. So the journalist must rise up to the occasion.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first